April 17th, 2023 will now come to order. In compliance with the Open Meeting Act, Nebraska Revised Statute 84-1407, a current copy of this act is posted in this meeting room. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Oakley.
Here.
Augustine Schulte.
Here.
Barr.
Here.
Freschauer. Hemer.
Here.
Jablonski.
Here.
Lopez.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Schilling.
Here.
Mayor Bulkley, the roll has been called.
Thank you. Mrs. Council President.
Our Father, thank you for the opportunity to serve our fellow citizens. Please give us your wisdom and guidance to make the proper decisions entrusted to this governmental body. May our conduct show respect, honor, and courtesy to each other, as well as to all our citizens. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. If at any time during our meeting this evening, anyone in our audience would like to address an item on our agenda, we'd ask that you please come forward. We'd ask that you give your name and address and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. We have a full house tonight. We do have some seats available still up front. So we will move on with our agenda. We'll go to the consent agenda.
Item 4, consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a City Council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from consent status and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Item 4A, minutes of the April 3rd, 2023 City Council meeting. Item 4B, renewal of a solid waste hauling licenses for the following: Ace Sanitation Service Incorporated, Beamer Lumber LLC doing business as Discount Dumpster, S2 Roll-Offs, Refuse and Recycling, UNI Sanitation LLC, and Waste Connections of Nebraska Incorporated. Item 4C, resolution number R23-59, approving the agreement with Columbus Area Youth Football Organization for use of Bradshaw Park football facilities. Item 4D, resolution number R23-60, authorizing payment of various improvement projects. Item 4E, Finance Department reports, and item 4F, payroll and bills on file. Mr. Mayor and Councilor, is there anything you would like removed from consent?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the items on the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Brings us up to special presentations. Tonight we have a couple of special presentations. It's kind of a unique situation we have tonight. April is designated as National Welding Month. And if you think of welding and you think of it in the old terms, it's the blacksmith and the people that welded. But if you think of what welding means to the Columbus community, you think of our plants, you think of the BDs, you think of all of our plants and today's technology that incorporates the different types of welding. And so one of the things we really want to do is find a way to reach out to our youth and show them the importance of what welding can mean to them, what it means to our community, what it means to all our businesses. These are great opportunities. These are opportunities that can become lifetime careers. And so this gives us an opportunity to try to highlight that. A little extra bonus that we got tonight that almost was great. It's not quite great, it's just good. And that is, besides my proclamation for the city, we have a proclamation from the governor. He had hoped to be here to give it. His schedule also did not allow that to happen, but he graciously said that I could read it for him. So I will do that tonight after I read ours. So bear with me if you would, please. Whereas the city of Columbus, Nebraska recognizes the importance of welding to our community, economy, and industry, and whereas welding is a skilled trade that is critical to the infrastructure and manufacturing industries in our city and throughout the nation, and whereas the welding profession requires extensive training, knowledge, and expertise, and those who practice this trade contribute greatly to the success of our local businesses and industries, and whereas the city of Columbus recognizes the importance of promoting welding as a career path for our students and young adults, and we encourage our citizens to support local welding programs, educational opportunities, and whereas the city of Columbus wishes to honor the contributions of welders and recognize their role in our community, now, therefore, I, James B. Bulkley, the mayor of the city of Columbus, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2023 as Welding Month in the city of Columbus and urge all citizens to recognize and celebrate the contributions of welders to our community and to support local welding programs and educational opportunities. Again, I think that speaks directly to our community, our industries, and what we have to be excited about in Columbus. Now, if you'll allow me, I'd take a moment and add to that the proclamation that our governor sent. Proclamation, whereas historical evidence suggests that as far back as 1000 BC, welding has played a role in the development of cultures and societies around the world. What the Egyptians found useful back then has become essential to Western civilizations throughout the years. From fences to phones to ships to spacecraft, buildings to bridges, the importance of welding technology is literally fused into the sociological and economical foundations of this nation. And whereas welding technology has improved our lives from generations to generation, from blacksmithing that aided the early settlers, to shipbuilding during World War II, to building of pipelines and the structures that we use every day, welding has forever left its mark upon our great state and nation. And whereas welding technology and expertise have advanced over the years, increasing the utility, strength, and efficiency of welding, professional welders use their skills and training in a variety of settings, from repairing cars to welding underwater vessels to welding the space station in outer space. And whereas the month of April has been designated for a national awareness campaign by the American Welding Society to recognize the importance of welding profession to the quality of our lives today and in the future. Now, I therefore, Jim Pillen, Governor of the state of Nebraska, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2023 as Nebraska Welding Month in Nebraska, and I do hereby encourage all citizens to consider and appreciate the contributions of the welding profession to the good life. With that, I'd also like to put a shout out to the one that started this and really got it started. She's kind of hiding in the back of the room. I'd ask her to stand, but she can't. Sarah Eilers is really been a force in our workforce development, our chamber, our Drive for Five, all the above in all of those areas. So Sarah, a shout out to you. Thank you for what you do. We appreciate it. All right, with that, we'll move on to, I lost my screen.
Item 6B is demonstration of robot by the police department, but we are going to hold that for a future meeting, so we will move on to public hearings. Item 7A, public hearing application of Mikel Castellanos, Morasan, and Jose Arita doing business as King Bar for a change of location of their retail class one liquor license from 4704 Howard Boulevard to 1267 26th Avenue.
This is not
Hope I
what
I hope I didn't mess those names up too bad.
You don't think
Doris.
I'm Michael? Doris Lux, 2418 142nd Road, Columbus, Nebraska. Michael would like to thank you for this opportunity to speak. He's had a liquor license in Columbus for 3 years because of potential building to be sold and rent. He's found a new location. It will not be a dance hall, but it will be a bar. It will be international music, which adds to the diversity as a venue from other businesses in that area. He is current with his liquor license as of now. I ask you to approve his application.
Doris, we don't approve, we recommend.
I'm sorry, recommend. Thank you.
Just to be clear on that.
Awesome. Any comments, discussion? This is a public hearing. Anyone here to speak? That obviously was speaking for the application. Anybody here to speak against the application?
Mr. Mayor, I move the public hearing be closed.
Have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor, I move a recommendation be made to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission to approve the application of King Bar for a change of location to 1267 26th Avenue.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 7B, public hearing, redevelopment plan for ACE Commercial Redevelopment Project located northeast of the intersection of East 23rd Street and East 14th Avenue within the 23rd Street corridor area. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Anyone here to speak against this public hearing? Anyone here to speak for this public hearing?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mitchell Peterson, 3264 East 15th Avenue. This is the ACE Commercial Redevelopment Project. A little bit of history. In 2021, we built ACE oversized storage units with this program, and the lot we used was at the end of East 25th Street. Lot had been for sale for 18 years, just cost prohibitive because of the amount of fill we needed, low-lying, issues like that. That was a success. We've got all of those rented, and we're looking to expand. So this proposal is for the ground heading to the east. And when Ron Lambert originally developed that, he put the street in on about like 2/3 of his ground, and the last third is undeveloped. So by us developing this last third of the stretch, it'll link up to the future East 18th Avenue that'll head north and south. We're going to do more oversize, and then we also are going to move into shop condos and contractor bays. So.
Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Move the public hearing be closed. Second.
Have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 7B1, resolution number R23-63, approving the redevelopment plan for ACE Commercial Redevelopment Project.
Mr. Mayor, I move that resolution number R 23-63 be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 7C, public hearing was going to be text amendments to the Unified Land Development Ordinance, just various amendments, but those need to be further clarified. So that motion is to remove from the agenda, and we'll bring it back at a future date. So that is the motion that we
Mr. Mayor, I move that the public hearing be removed from the agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to remove this item from the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Brings us up to reports of council committees.
Item 10A, Public Property Safety and Works Committee of April 10th, 2023. Item 10A1, Traffic Control Device Committee reports for the third and fourth quarter of 2022 and first quarter of 23. The Public Property Safety and Works Committee recommends that the Traffic Control Device Committee reports for third and fourth quarter of 2022 and first quarter of 2023 be approved.
Mr. Mayor, I move this committee report be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt these committee reports. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 10A2, change of procurement process for property and casualty insurance and workers' compensation insurance. The Public Property Safety and Works Committee recommends the procurement process for property and casualty insurance and workers' compensation insurance be changed to select up to 2 agents to go to market for bids, and the selection process be changed from every 3 years to every 5.
Mr. Mayor, I move this committee report be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this committee report. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Brings us up to new business.
Item 13A, application of Hilltop Roll-Off LLC doing business as Callaway Roll-Off for solid waste hauling license.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the application of Callaway Roll-Off for solid waste hauling license be approved.
Second.
New license?
It is. It's
Chief, can you turn that down, please? Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just asked if it was a new.
And I said, yes, it is a new. A motion.
We have a motion?
And a second.
All right, I'm sorry. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 13B, quote from Truck Center Companies in the amount of $32,329.50 for ladder truck repairs for the fire department.
Mr. Mayor, I move the quote from Truck Center Companies for ladder truck repairs be accepted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the quote for ladder truck repairs. Any discussion?
That thing's gonna be new by the time we get done with it, won't it?
It's very expensive to maintain it.
That's what I want going to my house when I call it.
All right, we have no discussion. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 13C, request from J&C Avenue Bar LLC for lottery sales outlet location at 1061 26th Avenue.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the request be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the request for a lottery sales outlet for J&C Avenue Bar. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 13D, plan specifications and estimate of costs in the amount of $80,000 for authorization to advertise for bids for the sanitary sewer rehabilitation 2023. Plans and specs are on file in the engineering department.
Mr. Mayor, I move the plan, specifications, estimate of cost, and authorization to advertise for bids for sanitary sewer rehabilitation 2023 be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the plan, specs, and estimated costs for sanitary sewer rehabilitation for 2023. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 13E, comments from the mayor and city council members. In compliance with the Open Meetings Act, no discussion may be held on this item.
Do we have any comments from council members? Yes, Councilman Jablonski.
I'd just like to recognize an individual who just passed away this week, Joe Barbalia. He was very, very influential in the current success of the Columbus Community Hospital. His work prior to that got the hospital to the place where they're at. He was He was a very, very astute, and he was a very, he really paid attention to nickels and dimes. He's going to be dearly missed. A friend and a good business person. And so I just want to express our sympathies to his family.
Very well, very good. He fought a good battle.
Yes, he did.
He did. Any other comments? I have nothing this evening. We'll move on to resolutions.
Item 14A, resolution number R23-61, approving the agreement with Sirius Computer Solutions LLC in an amount not to exceed $14,440 for wireless survey of Pawnee Plunge Water Park, Pawnee Park Baseball Field, Pawnee Park Memorial Stadium, Armory Park, Girard Park, and Frankfurt Square.
Mr. Mayor, I move that resolution number R23-61 be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution R23-61. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 14B, resolution number R23-62, approving the agreement with Columbus Soccer Club Incorporated for use of Wilderness Park soccer facilities.
Let me start by just trying to summarize a little bit of where we are here this evening. There's been a lot of things going on the last few weeks, a lot of comments going back and forth. I just want the public to understand what the city has been trying to do and where we are coming from. And what is being presented tonight, just a basic summary of that, is this agreement does not prevent any organization, AYSO, Adult League, club, high school, or any of those, from continuing to use the facility the way they always have and or grow or change their utilization of this field. The Wilderness Park organization has not functioned in the way it originally was intended for many years. The last meeting minutes we have been provided by the Wilderness Park organization actually came from 2013, which is 10 years ago. So, the feeling here is that if that organization wasn't working before, why would it be working now? As amended, every organization knows what the fees will be for utilization of the facility. This one of AYSO and Adult Leagues, this was one of AYSO and Adult League's original concerns. What were these fees and what would they be? All other facility use agreements for the city are made with one user organizations. All other users of any other facilities have to go through that organization to utilize the facility. Pawnee Park Baseball Field, the Legion Park, Bradshaw Park Softball Fields, Columbus Youth Softball Association, Centennial Park Baseball Fields, Columbus Youth Baseball. All these work through as an organization. We are just trying to bring that same organizational structure into Wilderness Park. What we are trying to do is take a facility that is a great asset to our community and make it accessible to all those organizations that can use it. So knowing that, I know there's some feelings here. There's people that want to express some comments, and I'm sure some councilmen may have some comments and some feelings. As I said in the beginning, we welcome anyone that wants to make a comment to the podium. We'll ask for your name. We'll ask for your address. We will limit any comments to 5 minutes. If the meeting begins to drag on, we will look to any comments that are sounding very similar to other comments and ask that we end that kind of discussion. If we hear it once, we've heard it. So with that, we will begin with what those that are opposed of what's being presented this evening to step forward and present any of your thoughts or any of your comments.
So we need a motion to discuss.
Oh, I am sorry. You're right. We need to take the motion forward.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I move resolution number R23-62 be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Probably should have waited to give my speech after that, but I got ahead of myself. Sorry. With that said, we will look to those who have comments and concerns against this recommendation.
Hi, I'm Katie Gassman. Address is 976 136th Road, Silver Creek, Nebraska 68663. I'm the current regional commissioner for ASO, and I want to talk about some of the problems with the contract. And Mayor, you brought up some points that I wasn't prepared to The fee thing, yes, I was very happy to see the fees in this current contract, but we were not included in, again, that conversation either. And I feel like that should be a conversation we should all be a part of. But the notes I have down that I wanted to talk to you, and I'll go as fast as I can. But I want to speak directly about the WPOC contract and not about changing ASO or merging with club. Those things have seemed to have come together in this conversation, and I want to keep them separate. So ASO has been a part of the WPOC committee that was developed to run wilderness since the very beginning. So when the fields were built and getting funds using the ASO logo and its name. That contract at WPOC expires every single year, and generally it's re-signed with no change. I have a contract with me showing my signature, so I've been a part of it. That's not new that it expired. I have been involved in that contract. The committee has never had issues with the city. I know, Mayor, you mentioned we haven't met in 10 years formally, but there's been no issues brought to the city about WPOC ever. We've been AYSO itself has been stewards of the community with our volunteerism at the soccer complex. Each and every year, the entire AYSO board has always been unpaid positions. So everything we've done for the city, we've done free of charge. This year, the city decided to redo that contract and not even contact a single person at AYSO, and that seems to be our biggest issue. I don't know how that happens, how you're a part of a contract and suddenly you're just written out of it. It's important to note that WPOC did not vote on this. However, I understand the Parks Department has been explaining it that way. I also understand they're explaining the need to remove it because it's not a real committee without bylaws and a constitution. That seems like a simple fix, and I don't feel like it should be required to remove it entirely. So I want to do a timeline really quick. August 22, I have an email with the current club president talking about there is no bylaws for WPOC, but the plan was to keep a committee for Wilderness Park moving forward. He understood that I wanted to meet more often and address that as a change, and we would talk more about it after the busy time of year. That was a conversation I was expecting to have. I learned of the completed contract in February of 2023 by accident. I sent an email to the Parks Department requesting it on February 21st and asked for collaboration on it. I was denied that. I was told it was signed and was done. I was then told I was unwilling to compromise or have a conversation. I was even added that I only wanted it to go 100% my way, but that's an interesting statement considering I was never included. After understanding that this was not only going to City Council on March 6th, but it would also be under consent. However, we wanted to discuss it. It was moved to discussion and then quickly removed from the agenda at Tara's request. It was asked that all parties work together to come to an agreement, and that was on March 1st, and we really appreciated that. Tara reached out via email on March 8th asking for what changes we had with the contract. We sent out a detailed email back on March 16th. The main goal we had was to have a separate committee, similar to WPOC, name it, whatever you want, that would include all entities, AYSO, Columbus Soccer Club, the new adult league, and even involve the high schools. March 31st, Tara reached out again with an updated contract, taking our suggestions, all of the entities, to my understanding, was given. Our partial change we had requested and made to the copy, and a meeting was set for April 6th for all of us to meet and discuss. We had until April 11th to get our changes in for the final draft to be submitted. This meeting quickly turned into a conversation about why ASO should rebrand to a local rec program and run along with Columbus Soccer Club. This was not the issue at hand, and I felt backed into a corner, and I was not prepared for that discussion. This meeting was to be about the contract and making those changes. I spoke to Tara in her office on Monday, April 10th. I wanted to clear the air after that meeting and make sure she was able to see through and see where ASO really stood. I didn't feel like I could get that out that day. She agreed to meet. That was very gracious of her. It was very, very short notice. I lost my spot. But we spoke about, she agreed that we need to have a separate committee overseeing Wilderness Park. This committee should be all the organizations having equal say in the development, finances, and responsibility. She also agreed that merging with Club or changing her name was not something she thought was needed. And for the first time, I felt heard and understood, and I relayed that back to the ASO board. This should not be about control. All entities have incredible feedback that would only aid in the future Wilderness Park. Giving control to one organization is a mistake. Although the city and club have been given months to prepare, we had days to finalize this contract. We sent in our request on April 10th. We submitted 6 changes. 2 remain on the contract, and 1 was a partially granted request. ASO decided with wording changes on 2V that we would agree to the contract as it was. This is being pushed really hard because it expired in March, and I know they want to get it passed. We just want it done right. This wording reflected Tara's commitment to clarity. She wrote, the CSC, AYSO, and Columbus Adult Soccer League, in cooperation with the City of Columbus, will form an organization over the next 9 months, which will be the official entity overseeing Wilderness Park. Each of these entities will be equally represented in this newly formed organization. The 2024 facility use agreement will be between the city and this new organization. That was sent at 3:37 on April 13th. A small add-on was done at 5:32 the same day, adding that in the event the organizations cannot reach an agreement by December 1st, the city will explore other options for operation oversight of Wilderness. Of course, this was a little concerning for ASO because it's never crossed our minds that we wouldn't be able to come to an agreement. On Friday at 2:25, the line item was changed to what you're seeing now as 2V, and that's the Columbus Soccer Club, AYSO, and the Columbus Adult League, in cooperation with the City of Columbus, will work to structure the nonprofit Columbus Soccer Club, Inc. in a way as to jointly oversee Wilderness Park. Each of these entities will have proper representation within the organization to protect priority usage of the complex during each entity's regularly scheduled season, as it has been held at Wilderness Park for several years. Each entity will have an equal opportunity to schedule events, voice concerns, and suggest improvements needed for the soccer complex. The 2024 facility use agreement shall be between the City of Columbus Soccer Club, Inc., with all entities included as part of that organization. ASO politely said no to this. The wording is confusing. It implies we are reorganizing Columbus Soccer Club to be a part of it, and then at that point we can oversee Wilderness. For now, ASO will remain ASO. Under our bylaws, we cannot join another program. So this would mean we will not have representation for AYs for Wilderness Park. ASO has not been given an appropriate amount of time to really look into this contract, and we have also not been given enough face-to-face meetings to really collaborate it. April 6th was the only face-to-face meeting I had with anyone. We are offering 2 suggestions. That line 2V be changed back to the final edit on Thursday. The wording should be clear. It should show a clear intent by the city, or revert back to the 2022 WPOC contract and give us the rest of the year to correct any issues. Can I answer any questions?
Yeah, Katie, just, and as I told you, but for the record, Columbus Soccer Club wouldn't sign the agreement with the language that was sent on Thursday. That's why there was more conversations had Thursday night, Friday morning. So we came to that agreement of the current language. And in emails, we communicated,
Yeah.
I do not believe, and I think our city attorney would agree, that nothing in the current language requires any change to AYSO's structure. It simply says that a committee under a current organization would be established, and that committee would oversee the operation of Wilderness Park. It doesn't say AYSO has to change to
No.
Columbus Soccer Club. That is what the contract says. I understand what your interpretation of it is, but the contract does not require that any of the current organizations change to be part of Columbus Soccer Club's structure.
Absolutely.
It's just members of a separate committee that will oversee
So,
Wilderness Park.
I guess my concern with that, absolutely, if I've said that in my comments, I'm sorry. No intention was made that I felt like, but what I want to be clear on is you're saying that, but the contract is confusing. And if Columbus Soccer Club is going to create a committee, then I'm not sure what the difference is if we create a committee that would not necessarily need to be under Columbus Soccer Club. And I know you've talked about how all your other parks run this way, and there's been some issues with the other parks, but this park has ran this way, and there's never been an issue. If there was issues with the park, I could see why we'd want to do away with that committee and go under one of the organizations. And all your other parks are underneath your youth rec programs, not the club programs. So yes, my concern is the wording, that if the committee is going to be under club, then proper representation is worded funny, because who defines proper?
The whole group does over the next 9 months. And that's the rest of the wording in 2V says that if all organizations can't come to an agreement over the next 9 months, we will go a different route, which means everybody has to agree, which again means AYSO, Adult League, Columbus Club Soccer, none of them are losing their voice.
Yes, but you're saying that. My issue is, though,
That's
None
what
of
the
us have had
contract
it.
says.
The
That's what
contract
the
spells,
contract
And we
contract
have to
spells
hold
it.
the city to that, because up until now, we haven't had equal say.
I'm
Because we've
telling
all
you-
been saying, let's not do that, and one organization is saying, let's do that, and you're like, okay, let's do that.
No, we're just saying for the 9 months that's remaining in 2023, we do need to move forward because people have already started using the facility. We have added everything in this contract to ensure that AYSO, Adult League, everybody that's used that facility has a very clear picture of what their use looks like this year.
Yes.
When they get it, how much the fees are, everything we could possibly
Absolutely.
add in cooperation with you. The only issue I understand that you guys have with this is 2V, and I want to just clarify that I think what 2V actually says is different than what you're interpreting it to
And
be.
that's definitely an issue. Because if we're
But
interpreting it differently, then it can be read differently by, I want it to be clear and concise. When you had that original agreement, Tara, it was clear and concise. I do not
it
agree that the
still
committee has to be under club. That is
Doesn't
still
have
an
to.
issue.
This contract doesn't require that. It says that if all parties can't come to an agreement to go that route, that a different path will be looked at. If by December 1st.
Yeah, that was added, the December 1st. This was the email you had sent me. I had seen the final draft on there. So I did leave that part out, if by December 1st. And by December 1st, that means an equal vote of who doesn't agree.
If everybody doesn't agree that the path forward as written is agreeable to everyone, then on December 1st, the city is going to go a different route. Whether that's the city just overseeing it, whether that's creating a separate organization away from Columbus Soccer Club. But WPOC, I understand that everybody thinks that the city has had this, on paper, the city's had an agreement with WPOC. It has not existed for a decade in reality.
Well, talking about minutes.
In reality.
Yeah, talking about minutes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't disagree with that. The last 10 years has been virtually me and Kay at the complex.
Right.
So yeah, we just took care of it. And I was very, very open when the new club president took over that that's not working. Let's have meetings. So I know what you're saying, Tara, and I appreciate the information and clarification, especially for everyone behind me, because I can't give that kind of clarification because that's not how I read the contract. I don't think that committee needs to be under club. I think the city should take a stand and say it won't be under club, and it'll be a separate committee on its own, and we'll all be a part of that. That's where our stand is.
Well, and that's part of what we're here for this evening,
Absolutely.
to see where the city will take a stand. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
that's what our discussion is here this evening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Katie, you made it, maybe I didn't hear you right, you were talking pretty fast.
I know,
nervous
sorry.
as heck.
Do you want my
But
words?
Did you say something about AYSO couldn't get into an agreement with anybody else?
So the way we can't, like ASO board, like the ASO board can't join the club board and run a committee under, we can't be, so if Columbus Soccer Club starts their own organization, which is kind of implied in the reorganization and things that they've also said and mentioned, that their intent eventually will be to be Columbus Soccer Club and we umbrella under that. That's what ASO can't do. So in order for that to happen, for us to umbrella underneath club and be a functioning organization under them, we will have to drop the ASO name and run as a rec program. And that's been a conversation. There's just been little issues that have been with it.
Not part of WPOC?
Absolutely.
Same thing?
What do you mean?
Under their umbrella, weren't you?
That was a committee though. So I was the only person that reported to that committee. But that committee wasn't under Columbus Soccer Club. That committee was its own.
WPOC.
It was under its own entity and we joined that entity. What we're saying now is here's Columbus Soccer Club, here's the committee, and now we got to join this committee that's overseen by club. And that's the issue that the ASO bylaws have.
That's not what it says.
You actually said that. You
I
said that the committee would
that
run
the
under
committee
Columbus
would
Club.
oversee the operation of Wilderness Park, and AYSO would maintain its own independence.
Absolutely. Your comment was that the committee would be built and would run under Columbus Soccer Club.
The committee would be
Ran by,
burning Wilderness Park and would be under the structure of Columbus Soccer Club.
That's where
but
it-
it would have equal representation from all entities.
that's where it gets sticky because Columbus Soccer Club is its own organization.
But if the bylaws are written to have equal representation by all of those that are using it, it doesn't matter.
Okay, that's
what
a fair,
umbrella
That's absolutely a fair question. Give me time to ask if that's going to be okay. We just haven't
That's
had.
what the next 9 months is.
This is a
Time to work
9-month
that out.
agreement to move forward for the season that we are already into.
I just feel like it locks it in. It locks it in, and we're going to get to next year, and we're again not going to have a voice if even spoken
It does
to.
not lock it in. I understand why you feel that way, but it does not lock it in.
Okay.
It does
You
not
may be
require it.
hamstrung with AYSO's guidelines. I mean, you may not have a choice.
Right, and I need to find out more based on how you're wording it, because again, you obviously hear that I am interpreting it completely different. I'm asking it to be clarified, but again, I don't think that committee should run under club. I think it needs to be a separate organization to allow ASO the time. Yeah. Your turn?
Any other
Anything
questions
else?
for Katie?
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi. My name is Tim Gentile. I live at 769 South 32nd Avenue, Columbus, Nebraska. I've have a few pieces of information. And the troubling part of this may be this is the first time anybody is hearing this information in these negotiations. I spent some time talking to some Parks and Rec folks from Hastings, Papillion, Norfolk. Talked to Nick at Fremont. I talked to Kearney in North Platte. And clearly defined in our contract that's presented to you guys today is a fee that's going to charge our organization at the lowest level a $20 per game fee. That's for our U5 and our U6 kids. We will pack 6 fields on a full-size soccer field for those kids. We'll run roughly 6 games per half hour on those fields in a 4-hour span from about 8 o'clock to noon on Saturdays. And what we're seeing is that total is going to get near 10 grand for our process, okay, for our organization. You talk to Hastings. Do you know how much they charge? Does anybody know? Did anybody check with Hastings on what they charge the YMCA to mow, irrigate, paint their fields for their rec program that they won with the YMCA? Does anybody know what they charge? Ryan does at the Parks Department there. He charges them $35 per field per day. They use 13 fields in a 5-week season. Their total bill is close to $2,000. They have about 700 kids. Papillion, this is on their website. The fields are owned by the city. The field house there, they've got a couple fields down by the river. They've got some more, I guess, turf fields that are better for high school and more competitive play. Those are $5 a game. Norfolk, what a great community that is. They don't even own their ASO fields. That's a private, the Express and ASO own their fields out by the airport. But at Memorial Park and Lone Pine Park, the city owns those fields and they prepare for their adult soccer league. Their cost is $40 per team per year. Now, the city will go out there and fertilize, irrigate, and they mow and stripe. All of these communities do that for their cities and their rec programs. Here in Columbus, our contract says we're paying $20 games for our 5s and 6s. We're paying $35 for our 10s and $50 for our co-eds on a full-size field. From the cities I've just read, we're being asked to pay 4 to 5 times the amount than those other communities.
So, Tim, just for clarification's sake, AYSO and Columbus Club Soccer, they had discussions. This is information we were provided. They had discussions, and AYSO told Columbus Club that it costs around $12,500 a year. The previous way it's always been done. This last year was $12,500 to pay their portion of the oversight expenses at Wilderness Park. Columbus Club Soccer made those fees based on that number. So, and AYSO has reported to the park board for the last 3 years that they've operated at a loss. This contract would actually save AYSO money compared to what they've been paying, according to what AYSO told Columbus Club.
That's hearsay, because that meeting didn't happen. We just
Well,
went
we
through the
can
whole
let,
timeline.
we
and
can
that
let
meeting didn't
those
happen.
people that were involved in that conversation come forward.
the
But I
numbers-
think the point I
okay,
was going
I'll-
to say, may I finish, was that the city isn't involved in establishing fees because we're not the ones overseeing and maintaining it. So no, we didn't do the research, but those fees were established because of information that was shared between the entities, just so the record is straight.
I mean, I'm not done reading through cities, but I mean, I'm going to keep telling you, cities, they're not paying these fees.
And if we want to move that way where City of Columbus oversees it and moves in that direction, that would be research that we would do. But historically, that's not how organizations that use Wilderness Park have wanted the city to operate.
None of these organizations where the city operates any of the fields. It's all done by their parent volunteers.
Well, you just said the city fertilizes those.
Well, they
and
maintain it, yeah.
the
their
point
facilities.
is they're entirely different. So we're comparing apples and oranges.
How is Hastings different than Columbus?
The way they operate,
They have
as
two
I just
McDonald's.
explained, how it is, and we can let Columbus Soccer Club get up and explain how they came to those fees.
Well, it's easy to know. We played 458 games. We had an expenses on our ledger that we presented to the city, and it said that we spent $13,000 and X amount of dollars. Those fees were backed into by club, right? They did the math. 458 games, 124 teams, 6 fields, ba-da-ba-ba. You do the math, 20, 35, 50. That's how you get to that $13,000 number. That's assuming for the last 10 years, we've been 50% of the leadership out there in oversight of the fields. We've asked our families to contribute roughly $4,500 in fertilizer. Now, of all the communities that we're saying we're different from, we're the only community where the city doesn't actually fertilize the fields. For Fremont, this is an interesting one. They leased the entire program to the club for $1. They mow the club. They stripe, they fix their irrigation, they run the wheels, they do the whole shooting match out there. They pay the city $1.
Well, maybe that's a discussion in the next 9 months that you want to have.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what the next
That's
9
the
months
kind of
gives you,
the
Tim.
point.
I mean, that opens that up for you. I mean, that's great to look at that as an opportunity.
I'm feeling, from a professional standpoint, we've kind of sat back on our haunches at this point and said, it's been 10 years, now it's been 4 months. We're going to ramrod this contract down to get it done. We're going to sacrifice right for done. That's what you're telling me. That's what you're telling the citizens of this community.
What in this contract prevents AYSO or Adult League from doing exactly what they've done for the past and having very similar
Well, because
expenses?
we've written a check to Fifth Season to fertilize the fields. Okay? They're structuring a fee structure that is not congruent with the 7 other communities of our same population in the state of Nebraska. That's not right. That doesn't mean we're going to not pay our fertilizer bill. We'd like to get an invoice for the fertilizer bill and pay it. Back to the conversation of being a part of the organization that oversees the Wilderness Park. You can't hide the weenie, is what we're doing, guys. Make the fees be the fees, and then make them across the board match what the rest of the state, of the cities that are population 20,000 to 30,000. We're not that different. So that's what I have to say.
Appreciate it.
Yes, Vicki Perry, 3157 38th Avenue, Columbus, Nebraska. I just have a few questions. One of them was the fees. This is about the children. This is about the parents that pay, that can't maybe not afford it. And when I saw this paper, sad, guys. It's sad. There's families out there that can't have their kids play. and we're charging these prices. It's not right. I've been a part of soccer over 20 years. Club and ASO. I was on the ASO board for 10 years. All my kids played club. I'm neutral in this. I don't have on either side. My kids are out of soccer now, grown through college. But when you have a WPOC and all of a sudden it's expired, that bothers me. Why? Long time ago? How long ago did that contract expire?
I don't think it was ever a contract, was it?
There was a contract that was signed every year.
Right.
2022.
There was a contract, but there was not a valid organization
Yeah, that was
behind
the
that
thing about it.
contract.
If there wasn't a valid organization,
And we should have recognized that earlier.
it should have been
Oh,
recognized.
Shame on us.
So
Shame on
now,
us.
now all of a sudden, it's not recognized. What was wrong? When I was in it, Kevin Ainsworth was a part of it. Kay Arlt was a part of it. Arlt was a part of it. You know, there were so many people that were a part of it, and it worked well. It worked really well. And you know what? All three of those belong to both. And when you have concerns, this isn't about who's in club and who's in ASO. It's about the kids. That's what this is about. And so my other concern is why, when the contract that was signed, why wasn't the representative from ASO brought together and formed this contract together? Why is that?
Well,
Because that's my question.
yeah,
Because,
that's why we pulled it. That's why we stopped the whole conversation and had that dialogue.
okay, because that was a concern for me. That's lack of,
It's a valid concern.
yeah, it's a lack of
There's some-
respect. Complete lack of respect. And that shouldn't happen at all because it's about the kids. So I would like to see, I want to say that being on the board, the fees are high. But when you have a national organization, you have X amount of dollars, you can put the et cetera in the WPOC. So there can be improvements. There can be things like that. But when it's not discussed between all of the entities, that's where we have an issue. I don't want to say I feel bad for Katie because I think maybe she was kind of pushed aside. We're going to get this done. And I've talked to both sides. Both sides. I've talked to a couple of club members, and I've talked to Katie as well. You know, it was kind of shoved under the rug and pushed aside. We're going to get this working so we can get this season going. My opinion and my suggestion, leave it the way it is. Have the city run it. Have each person from each entity, have an AD from a school or someone from a school be a representative, and have your field guy come out there. And maybe even the parks board person. That's how you're going to fix this. That's how you're going to communicate it, by involving everyone. No one is pushed aside. No one is, that's shady, guys. It's shady. So that's what I'm just trying to say. Leave it, work it out, and then decide, like you said, in December. Because it's not right. Thank you.
Just to clarify,
Oh, yes.
were the fees structured, scheduled on what was used last year?
We would have to ask, again, these are fees that were presented
Right.
by Columbus
But,
Club.
but they used the numbers from last year
True
divided by the
expenses from last
usage.
year, yes.
So-
But that
That's
was
what I
just,
was told.
So we're not,
Not on us.
the comment about taking away from the kids, they're not trying to do that, apparently. They're just going by what last year's was. Did you deny any kids last year to play? Because they didn't have the money?
No, because
I'm just curious.
that's another thing that can jump into the whole part that we're not going to talk about. Because ASO has a separate, what's it called, Katie? The helper. T for C. ASO has what's called a T for C, and they will help if kids cannot play.
Right.
They
but-
help
but
out.
Their numbers are based on what they were given and then backed out. So it wasn't.
Yeah,
I don't think this is a matter of
Well-
making people not being able to
So what my
participate.
question would be is, did club pay the same 12.5?
Did they have the same usage? I don't know.
I don't know that either.
The contract says they have to pay the same fees.
Yeah.
Okay, so was that the same fees for them last year? Because no one wants anyone to pay more than what they need to.
Again, we would have to have them, they came up with the fee structure. We'd have to get them up here to answer all those
Okay.
questions.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
You were saying that the kids were paying the fee structure, but they're not paying the fee structure. They're paying, what is it, $60 a person?
They are,
That's what
it's,
they're paying.
right.
This is not the paying for the use of the field.
It does that, each child that pays, if, let's say the fees go up more than what they were, then the fees for ASO per child have to go up, which I'm understanding that the fees are not going to be higher this year. I do understand that. The fees will be less.
But that wasn't what your statement was. You just told us that we were gonna make kids not be able to afford to
Yeah,
play. I mean, that was your first statement.
Well, it's just not fair to the kids. But okay, let's,
Fair and not playing are two different things.
okay,
That's just what I'm saying. I mean, you know.
It depends.
You made the comment
It's-
that you were gonna let kids were not gonna be able to play, but this is the same fee structure that happened last year. And I just wanna make sure we're hearing everything correctly.
I do know that the fees are going up $5 more this year.
Okay.
So whether that's included in that, I don't know.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, but that,
all right.
but that isn't, that's ASO doing that, isn't it?
That is.
Okay,
But I
then
don't know
that
if
is
that's something you'd have to ask Katie. I don't know why it's went up that little bit. When you look at the fees that are on all the other fields, this is the first time I've seen this. And I'm sure it's the first time you guys have seen this. Do you have a copy of this? From all the fields from Nebraska?
Yeah.
I've never seen that. That's the first time I've ever seen it. That is crazy. When you guys look at this, that makes everyone's fees go down. So think about that when you're making your decision. Thank you.
Any other comments? Speaking against this proposal? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Paul Hicks, 406 28th Street, Columbus, Nebraska. I just want to share something from maybe a very simple perspective. Like I have a child and we played with AYSO and then the club thing, you kind of get invited. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the club picks and chooses the children and they kind of are more competitive where the AYSO is more of a fun deal. And so when I got involved, I like to get involved because I have a child. And I was shocked that the AYSO people, I said, I'll volunteer to work on the field. They got so many people volunteering to work on the field. It's amazing. I went to take my dog there, and I got screamed at for having my dog on the field. They protect that field like it's God Almighty. So this is just from observation and working for the state of Nebraska. It seems like it's almost an elitist thing to have one. Let's say we're going to choose club to do this, and we'll give 9 months, and then we'll just be down the road. It'd be like you're having your children, and you got to rely on trust of a contract with that you're not a part of. It's sure to wait 9 months down the road, but it's just my observation. I respect all you guys. I mean, this is great. You guys are service members for the community, but this has been ill prepared and ill thought of, and it would be respectful, I believe, to maybe table this and sit down and have some conversations with all the entities involved, especially ASO, because you got some people that have been volunteering their time to work on the fields, organize this for the kids and everything, and then leaving them out is, to me as a Marine, that feels rather disrespectful. And I don't think any of you guys meant to do that, but I would consider that now when you vote. I would table this and get some more information on it for damn sure. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, we'll move to any that are for this recommendation. I'm not gonna hold you to a time limit, but I've been pretty generous with the 5 minutes at this point.
I
so
think I can get
I'm just
it in
gonna ask
5.
you to keep it moving, please.
I will do that. My name is Jason Byerman, 267 South Fifth Avenue, Columbus, Nebraska. I'm currently the tournament director for the soccer club, but I've also been a volunteer with ASO for nearly 30 years. I was on the ASO board for 12 years up until February of last year, so I've gotten to see kind of both sides of these discussions from my time in both organizations. The agreement that's on there, it begins with a statement, whereas Columbus Soccer Club in coordination with ASO and Columbus Adult Soccer League, that right there identifies that all of these entities are still going to be able to use the complex. We're not shutting anybody out. Nobody's going to get turned away or anything like that. For years, the Columbus Soccer Club has been responsible for setting up all of the fields for the local high school games. We've set up the fields for our own tournaments and other events. A member of our board is not acting on behalf of the club, but he was hired by ASO to set up their fields as well before the start of the season. So the club has been setting up fields out there for a long time, even with the existence of WPOC. From my time on the ASO board, I know that finding volunteers for everything right now is a lot tougher than it used to be. I had to write a letter a couple times about if we don't get any more volunteers, we're going to have to dissolve AYSL. So when I made that jump over in my resignation letter to Katie with ASO, I told her that we're going to be a friendly voice to the rec program in Columbus. And so one of the first things I recommended for the soccer club was last year, we went out and striped 4 out of their 7 fields every week during the season to help them out. So it was soccer club people that were out there doing that. The adult soccer folks were out there as well as ASO volunteers. But we did offer to go out there and do that for them. And again, we did all that, despite the existence of this WPOC. But, the WPOC was the head of ASO, the head of club, basically emailing each other back and forth, text messages. There were no meetings. Sometimes an invoice would show up at an ASO meeting with no input from ASO and just a demand to pay it. So that entity hadn't been working, obviously. No bylaws, no bank account, no improvements were being made directly by the WPOC. It was the soccer club and ASO splitting those fees to make the improvements out of the complex. So basically, the majority of the agreement is actually the same as any other year. Other than the name at the top. One difference is the fee structure. In the past, ASO, Columbus Soccer split the big bills out there. Fertilizer, those sorts of things were all split 50-50. We each paid the vendor directly. We didn't chip, So really, the only thing changing here is the club will be the one billed for it, and we're covering ASO's portion through the fees. When we set up the fees, I'm the guy that came up with the fees, so I'll take responsibility for those. But what I did is I asked ASO, I said, how much do you spend on fertilizer, paying somebody to set up your fields at the beginning of the season, and paint? And I was given a number around a little over $11,000. So when I started out on the fees, I started at a goal of about $12,000, because it didn't include anything like overseeding or any additional improvements, just strictly those couple of items. So that's where we started out. I just built the fees directly around what ASO has been paying, because we told AYSO when we first started talking about some of this stuff months ago that we wanted those fees. We weren't going to charge them more than they've been paying. So, because we want kids playing soccer. I don't care what program they're in. We want them out there using that complex. So I ran a bunch of different scenarios, ultimately developed a tiered pricing model. That basically is what's in the agreement here. So basically took the total number of games they have, broke it down by age division, and determined what rate can we charge. We do it per field, per game, you name it. Ran a number of different scenarios. Some of them came in outrageously more than what they've been paying. Others came in probably a lot lower, like some of the other towns do. And then we don't even have enough to pay the fertilizer bill. So basically just got the fees to right where ASO's been paying. As it turns out, last year the AYSO turned in expenses to the park board of $24,133.07 for field expenses, and they ran a deficit of $9,943.79. So had this agreement been in place last year, we would have actually saved AYSO $12,000, and they wouldn't have had to do any work. They could have had all of their volunteers, instead of coming out in the middle of the week when there's no kids there, could have gotten those volunteers and been there on Saturday for game day when the complex was packed.
Hey, say that the 24,000 was because we didn't pay the fertilizer bill from the year before.
Okay, so we could have saved AYSO $8,000. I don't know that. I'm just going by the numbers here.
Okay. Well, that's 2 years worth of fertilizer.
All right.
Okay, so we would have saved ASO $8,000 instead of $12,000. What they could have done with those savings, I don't know. But the fees are uniform across the board is the bottom line on this. No matter which entity is using the complex, whether it's a game or a practice, every entity is charged exactly the same per rate fields, and that includes the soccer club. And these dollars go directly toward fertilizer, paint, overseeding, and so forth. Initially we offered a 50-50 option like we had been doing, and we were one of the entities, the adult league, requested specific dollar amounts, so that's why we had to come up with a fee structure. We're just trying to oblige with their requests. So basically, when we get down into 2V, that's where I think everything kind of goes awry for everybody. But basically, what we're trying to do with that is kind of what's been described here. We're not kicking anybody out. We're not forcing anybody to merge. All we're doing is we're saying, hey, we're going to use the Columbus Soccer Club, which is a legal entity, and we're going to use that as a vehicle to create this committee so that we can get the involvement from everybody and input and so forth to make these decisions going forward at the complex. And again, nobody has to join. There's nothing in this agreement that says these entities have to merge. There's no takeover. Each entity can continue as it always has. Nobody's kicked out. It protects each separate entity's operations at the complex. It just kind of gives us an opportunity to get everybody at the table to talk about how the complex should be operating. So to further reinforce this commitment to everybody being involved, we had our regular monthly meeting last night for the soccer club. We did create a committee specifically for handling the business of the soccer complex. The committee does include a representative from the soccer club, AYSO, and the adult soccer league, among that anybody has related to the soccer complex. The committee will also set the operating budget for the complex and make adjustments to the fee schedule based upon that budget so that the income matches the expenses. The committee will be on the monthly agenda for the soccer club so that the committee's discussions and recommendations are recorded in the soccer club's minutes, because in this agreement we are required to submit those to the city each month. So that does provide an additional layer of oversight from the city to make sure that we're doing what we're saying we're going to do. So as for the requirements of the committee, just wanted to read this part of it from our discussion last night at the club meeting, but it reads, the committee must protect the usage rights of each entity, Columbus Soccer Club, AYSO, Adult Soccer League, and each local high school. Organizations who have held events regularly at Wilderness Park shall be given priority access to the dates and times such events have taken place, and no other organization is allowed to infringe on those dates and times unless forfeited by the original entity. All other dates and times for which the soccer complex has not had any regularly scheduled events or activities must be made available on a first-come, first-served basis. Each participating entity on the committee must be allowed to remain a separate entity, and participating on this committee does not constitute any agreement to merge with or otherwise join organizations. So, as we've been saying all along, we want ASO to be involved. We want the adult. We're excited to see the adult league. For as popular as soccer is in Columbus, the people have had to be driving to Grand Island, Norfolk, and Fremont to play when you are too old to play ASO. So we're excited to see all that. We want them involved. We want their input. So with that, I really just hope we can get past this so we can get back to the kids. So
Any questions for Jason?
Yes. How is it that the city and club soccer are the only ones that were negotiating this? Why is it that AYSO wasn't included? Why is it that the field coordinator wasn't included? Who else we got? All the others except Columbus Club.
So my personal involvement in this process started a little bit later on here, probably 3-4 months ago. We did meet with AYSO, the Adult League and Club did meet back on January 17th, I think it is here. We've met, on our own. They've come to our meetings and stuff, and we've had conversations about that. Scott may know a little bit more about how the initial start would have been, because again, WPOC was really just Scott and Katie at that point. It was Kay and Katie before that. So I don't want to speak for Scott and that part of it, because I'm not on WPOC. But I know just from my time with AYSO meets and gets really into business as the season starts to ramp up, when you're getting registrations and you're getting into the season. And there aren't enough volunteers to really, there hadn't been a lot of volunteers. There very well may be now, I hope. But it was, for the longest time, 3, 4, 5 people putting on an 1,100 kid soccer program in town. You're exhausted by the time that gets done. So I know that several times that we were trying to do, when I was with ASO, if we were trying to make changes or improvements or anything, usually it was, we'll have to talk about this at the end of the season. Season would roll around and be like, you gotta give me some time off. I don't know if that's how that all went. I know, again, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but my part really kind of came in when we started requesting fees and getting into language and stuff. So
I think possibly a question could be better answered, Charlie, by staff. Betsy, if you would like to come forward and answer that specific question in regards to how the negotiations worked in the beginning as we were putting this together. Again, those entities came into the discussion. We started it, staff started it.
Doug would be the one.
Yeah.
Well, whichever of the two is more comfortable explaining the situation.
Doug Moore, Public Property Director. How it got to every year, Kay and Katie would come to the meetings as a Wilderness Park organization, and that's who we dealt with. And then Kay decided to retire, so then Scott and Katie came to the meeting this year, so that's who we negotiated with, representing those entities.
And no thought of AYSO was to invite them to this?
Well, Katie came to the meetings at the park board.
Well, they're telling me that they got all left out. They never had any input.
Well, we didn't, at that time, the agreement was the same one we've been signing for the last 10 years.
Well, the question is, when we started talking about a different agreement, who brought the entities together to have that discussion?
When they wanted that discussion, we told the entities to get together and figure out how they wanted to do it. Katie and Betsy sat at those meetings, which we've been having for the last couple months. And then the last meeting that you and some more staff were involved with. So that's how we got to who we were negotiating with.
Okay, Betsy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, so when Kay retired, they requested that because the WPOC was just a committee, they created the Columbus Soccer Club Incorporation. And so that was an actual entity. We did not see it any different than what we had done in the past, and we didn't view it as being anything different than what we had done in the past. And so when Doug and I had a discussion, we did like we did every year. We put the agreement together. The agreement really didn't have any different language at the beginning than it did with the previous WPOC. We sent it off to Scott. The difference was the name, because it was a legal entity. In January then, I had a meeting with Katie, Scott, Jason, and some adult soccer representatives, and we talked about the future of the complex, some how they wanted to be involved in some meetings, and moving forward. I took that as that they understood that we had the agreement and we were moving forward. Clearly, we were misunderstanding something between the entities. And so then when we had the discussion in February, Katie and I in an email, we had a discussion. I was under the impression we had already had the conversation. But clearly that was not what she was having. And then that's when in March we pulled it off the agenda.
So there was a
There was one in
All right,
January
all right.
with Katie.
You gotta come forward.
People, we are only gonna talk from the podium. This has been a discussion, this is,
Just a quick question. So Betsy, so they were all aware that the WPOC was no longer in existence at that meeting, is that correct?
Well,
That would have been an assumption we made.
that was an assumption I made, yes. Whether or not that was actually
What they
what,
felt and thought.
yes.
Okay, so that was never said that WPOC was gone and we're moving over to Columbus Soccer.
Right, because in our view, nothing had changed from the agreement other than the name because it was an actual legal entity. But as far as how everything was going to operate, nothing was going to be different.
Thank you.
Vicki, you have a comment?
Yeah, I apologize for interrupting there. So there was a meeting
In January.
before that you met with Club and set up the contract already? Before anyone else was, you said you met with them and then you met with Katie and them.
Yeah, so.
So you
in
did have a
Jan-
meeting.
In January is when we set up.
Betsy, you have to come back toward the microphone.
Sorry.
This is a public meeting that needs to be
Sorry.
recorded. Please.
In January is when we set up the agreements with all of the facilities. So it's not just the soccer facility. We set it up with the Legion. We set it up with Columbus Youth Softball, with all of the facilities. And just like in the past, we contacted the president of club, just as we contacted Kay in the past.
Okay, so when you were just discussing, you said that you met with Club, you got the new contract going, and then you had a meeting in January.
Correct.
So you met with Club without contacting AYSO, without contacting anyone about this contract.
But again, that's nothing we haven't done in the past.
So you,
All
So
right.
in the past, when we would give the contracts, it went to the club president. So that's nothing we assumed that we weren't doing the same that we had always done.
The club president has always been the leader of WPOC.
Correct.
right.
Yes, that's what. Okay. Well, I thought you did. That's the point.
Okay, come up to the podium.
Betsy, you don't have to.
No, you don't.
No, you can go sit.
KR. Yes, Columbus Soccer Club President and the ASO Regional Commissioner are co-chairs of the WPOC, have been since 1990, whatever. I talked to Rich Albright today. He gave me a date. I can't remember. WPOC has been always a committee, never a legal entity, but always just a committee of the two head of the two programs and two other volunteers, which when I got off of the board last August, it was Kevin Ainsworth and Ken McMeekin. We're both on the board. And yet we didn't meet. We had emails, we had texts, we had phone calls. There was nothing to meet about. We got along. And anytime Betsy, the city would send the agreement to me, I would send a copy to Katie right away. We would talk about it. Nothing changed. We'll sign it. We're good. And I just want to talk about a few things Jason said because they're wrong. Columbus Soccer Club did not set up for high school games. Fields, nets, goals, nothing. I hired, as Columbus Soccer Club president, 2 individuals every year. We went out for bids. Jamie Bennett and John Arlt were the last 3 years that they set up our high school fields. Club did not do that. Club didn't set them up. We hired somebody to do that for high school. That's why we build the high schools. When I build the high schools, the $800, whatever it was per year, that was to pay the guys who set up the field. Club always took care of the paint because we figured these kids usually came through ASO, through Club. We're not going to build the high schools for it. We're just going to build them for the people that had to set it up. Also, Columbus Soccer Club did not tear down after ASO. They tore down after their tournament, which is a week after ASO is done. And ASO would tear down the fields Club didn't need for their tournament. Club was then tearing down their own fields after our tournament in October. Club only started striping last year during ASO because the new board wanted Club to practice out there. ASO said, that's fine if you practice, but can you mark the fields while you're out there? Because we have volunteers who come out to mark the fields. Your teams are on the fields practicing. They get in the way. So I just wanted to clarify those few things. but it's always been 50-50 paying. ASO does not use full-size goals. They use the small ones, so they've always purchased the small goals and nets. Club would purchase the large goals and nets. Anything we had to buy a U8 or a U10 goal was split down the middle. I'd send the bill to ASO. Club and ASO would split the cost. So, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Anyone else to speak in favor of this?
I guess Scott Jarecki, 3406 89th Street, Columbus, Nebraska. I just want to step up, see if you guys have any questions. We're getting away from the topic of the agreement a little bit on who pays for what, but what questions, I guess, Jason kind of covered most of it and when he stepped up here. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Don't believe so, Scott. Thank you for offering.
Thank you.
Can I ask Scott a question? Scott?
Sure.
I'm,
Scott can sit where he.
Oh,
Where
okay.
this usually isn't a
No,
conversation.
I mean, this
between-
is a four.
The
and a-
mayor runs the meeting.
I mean, this
You
is
can
a,
ask
go
him
ahead.
questions.
And
I'm Jacob Paliska, 30056 State Highway 22. Well, as I listened to Jason Byerman read the charter or his contract agreement, it did sound like it was written as Columbus Soccer Club with the AYSO under that umbrella. So I'm not speaking for it, but I do want, as other people have said, there should be clarity on what that agreement looks like. And it is not written very clear. And I've been an AYSO soccer volunteer for over 10 years. I have 6 kids. They've all been in the program. So I definitely want to see all the programs working and working well. And I think we do need to take the steps to make that happen. And I don't think it's written very clear, but it is written to where it seems like Columbus Soccer Club is the main entity and everything needs to run through it. And I think we've heard lots of evidences of that tonight. Thank you.
you, ma'am, are you for or?
I mean, against.
Well, I already asked for
I just
those.
want to clarify something. Real quick.
One comment and then we're done.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that part of the board member of Columbus Adult Soccer League. Oh, sorry, Virginia Costa, 2758 26th Avenue. I just want to clarify about the meeting that Betsy talked about, which she states that we were kind of in the same agreement. We clearly were not, and we spoke about having more meetings so that we can build trust, and then we didn't have any other meetings. So that's all I wanted to state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, any council members have any questions,
Yes.
comments?
So as I am listening, I'm hearing that people feel that there hasn't been clear communication, people don't agree on who's been doing what, there's not an understanding, or there's some differences on how money is being used and what is being spent. And the way I'm understanding what we are proposing in this agreement is we cannot go back and fix all of the stuff that people have already are frustrated with. We can't go back and fix past meetings or past communication that didn't happen. We can't go back and change any of that. Those things have happened. But what we can do is make some decisions tonight that are going to prevent all those problems from continuing to happen. We can't fix if Betsy assumed this and somebody didn't understand it. Can't do anything about that. So what we have to do is come up with a plan so that we can eliminate all of those frustrations that we're already having tonight. And the way I see it is we have put together a contract so that the different groups have 9 months to sit down and figure out how can we work together to prevent all of the issues that we're having right now. And at the end of 9 months, if you can't come to an agreement, then we say, this isn't going to work, the agreement's done. The city or some other entity takes over. That is what I am understanding from this contract tonight. That's where I'm going with. I mean, I get everybody's frustrated, but the frustrations you're bringing to us are not things that we can fix. So if you want to say, it's their fault, they should have done, we could have done, it should be like this. In regards to other parks and other establishments, how other cities do things, every city runs their budget their own way. So maybe Norfolk can run their soccer complex one way. It doesn't mean that we have our budget set up that we can do it the same way. Although that's good information to look at, and in your organization as a group, you can sit down together between all of your entities and say, Norfolk runs it this way, Grand Islet runs it this way. AYSO Club, everybody else, what can we do together to figure this out, to do something like that? But the things you're asking us to do tonight are not things that we can do. It's my take on it. So there you go. You have my temper tantrum tonight now.
Thank you, Beth.
I just have a quick question for Neil. There's a big difference between a contract and agreement, and this is strictly an agreement. Is that correct? Does it have contract liabilities?
Well, there's liabilities from the perspective of there's clear.
Because somebody's saying contract, somebody's saying agreement.
Yeah,
it's
really
an agreement.
It's really yeah. So there's clear requirements from the city's perspective. Right. There's clear requirements from the Columbus Soccer Club Incorporated's perspective. Okay. All the entities in there have their season called out and scheduled. So perfect. It doesn't appear to me that anybody is missing games or anything like that. It's kind of the financing on how they're doing it.
Okay, thank you.
I did have one other question too, in regards to if this organization as presented is formed. We've been told that there's going to be minutes taken at every meeting. And there's supposed to be a representative for at every meeting from each organization. Those minutes are supposed to be submitted to the city. I guess I would like to request that in those minutes, it is included who is present for each organization. And I know as council members, we all have to sign if we are aware of that meeting and we've been there. I guess I would like to encourage you guys to do that. I think it holds each other accountable in your organization, and it helps us see who's attending meetings and making sure everybody's hearing hopefully the same thing.
I think something that will help and maybe give comfort to what you're talking about there, Beth, is the first report from any of these organizations goes to our park board. From the park board, it goes to council.
Right.
Park board just established a new committee within their group to be more actively involved with all of these organizations to get a much closer look and a much more in-depth look at what's going on, what are the finances, who's involved, instead of just coming with a one-sheet piece of paper to the January meeting and say, here's last year's results, give me time, I'm moving forward to this year. It's been set up for that reason, so we get past that and have more accountability.
Thank you.
So I think the whole process is being looked at to try to tweak it in a better way.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes. And I think we stressed there was not an issue of accountability on any of the parts of any of these entities. We're just wanting to make it more firm.
Correct.
Fair statement?
We all know what everybody's saying and what everybody's doing.
Councilman.
Thing that I spent the day looking into, and my concern was basically the kids to start with. That's what I was looking at. I said, okay, how are the kids going to be affected? What's going to happen? And as I went through, nothing's going to happen with the kids. They're still going to play soccer. There's still going to be an AYSO organization. There's going to be adult group. There's still going to be the club team. You know, and this is the thing that concerns me, is that, you know, we're out here yelling and screaming, trying to make the organization make it better if we can, but the kids are still going to play. I don't care what happens. Someday down the line, if everything goes to pot, we're still going to have 1,200 kids out there playing soccer. And that's my emphasis, is that, you know, we as adults, our process should be to make everything a little bit better for the kids. And I think this is what I think this contract will lead to that eventually. But, you know, we've got 9 months to work on it. And at the end of 9 months, if we can't come up with something that's stable, then we'll find something that's going to be stable. And at that time, AYSO, club soccer, you guys may not like it. So that's my outlook, and I hope you guys can come, can make it work. It's just a matter of communicating. Gosh. You were talking about fees for them. You guys don't want to play baseball, I can see that, because, it's a little more expensive, I guess.
I appreciate everybody that's come out this evening to talk about this issue. I think it's been well discussed. I think you've heard that this is a 9-month program that is being proposed, a 9-month agreement or contract. From what I see as a summary would be the fact that the fees in the agreement are the same for all the organizations that are playing, soccer club, AYSO, adult league. There's no one organization getting a better deal. Everyone's being treated equally. Nothing in the agreement forces AYSO, the adult league, the high schools to use the soccer complex, to merge with Columbus Soccer Club. The facility use strictly says that every organization shall continue to help pay for the maintenance of the complex through the structure that is being put together. Each entity shall have a voice, and that is what we're talking about. We're gonna work to make that happen. We have 9 months, and at the end of the 9 months, we will have something that makes more sense, or as Ron Schilling just said, we'll put something together ourselves. I know in one of the meetings, they said we could put a padlock on it. We'll see who uses it then. And that's not what anybody wants. So we want this organization. We have a tremendous facility. We want it to be used by all those in Columbus that can utilize it. And that's what we are here to do as stewards of your tax dollars, to try to make that facility used to the utmost and in the best way. All right. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, brings us up to ordinances on their final reading.
Item 17A, ordinance number 23-02, amending section 150.001 of chapter 150 of title 15 of the Columbus City Code to adopt appendix C, group U agricultural buildings of the 2018 IBC to increase allowable area for non-protected wood frame ag buildings from 5,500 square feet to 12,000 square feet.
All right, I'm sorry. Who has this order?
I do. Mr. Mayor, I move the ordinance number 23-02 be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 23-02. Any discussion? I know back when this was first introduced on the first reading, there was a couple of questions. I believe by the second reading, those questions had been answered by staff. Is everybody comfortable that we have the knowledge we need for this ordinance? All right. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned.